welcome to another episode of Super Bulky. I have a guest with me today who's been here in Bakersfield all day. So in case we look a little wiped out, we've been busy today. And this is Frank. Hi, Frank.
Hi.
Thank you very much for doing this interview with me. So what he's been in town doing, you have a website that you're piloting now. It's up and running.
Yes,
and that makes customized sweater patterns.
Custom fit sweater patterns.
Yeah. And you've also been working with people on an innovative shoulder construction that you have. You're working on that a little bit?
I have worked on that for a little over a year. I've had suggestions from a number of people that have helped me along the way. And I have developed this technique that I call Phrancko's seamless set-in sleeves.
Great.
And it's a different way of doing set-in sleeves than is traditionally done. Mm-hmm. Well, the real traditional way is to knit the fabric all flat. So it's all flat knitting, wrong side, right side row. And then more recently, people have been doing a seamless set-in sleeve that knits the body, and everything from the arms up to the shoulder are knit flat. But then a hole is left on each side and stitches are picked up. Short rows are knitted back and forth down to the armpit, and then the sleeve is knitted in the round. I wanted to do more of the body, more of the whole sweater in the round, so that I could use patterns on the chest that were easier to knit on both on the patterns that are harder to knit on the wrong side, like Austrian Bavarian patterns, which is also called Alpine twisted knit traveling stitch patterns.
The daughter genre of those that you find in the Japanese stitch pattern books these days is very complicated.
And they often do crossovers on every row, not every other row, like Aran cables, which patterns do. And so that makes them difficult to knit flat, because it's always, you have to stop and think, well, which way am I crossing, so that if I cross this way on the back side, it's going to cross that way on the right side,
right?
That kind of thing.
So your approach is clearly, at least in this respect, innovative. You see this issue in the existing constructions, and you found a way to make that easier, which is
so
good.
I developed a way to do it so that you are knitting in the round once you close the neck. They're knitted from the top. The part that is on the sides of the neck are knitted flat. But besides that little piece, you're knitting in the round from the time you close the front of the neck all the way down the body, down the caps, sleeve caps, and then down the sleeves. It's all done in the round.
So you didn't develop this after you had been knitting for 40 years, right?
No.
So tell us a little bit about your background. When did you come to knitting?
I have actually been interested in knitting since I was a teenager.
Good.
And I used to watch my sister knit. But I grew up in Georgia in the 50s and 60s.
Mm-hmm. I've heard of that.
And it was a very conservative place, very gender-oriented. You know, boys did boy things, girls did girl things, and they didn't cross that line. And so I was not allowed to take up knitting because that was a girl's thing.
Of course.
But I wanted to. And so finally, when I was in my 30s, I decided I'm going to take up knitting. And so I did. I taught myself to knit. I knitted a few scarves, a few mittens, and a couple of sweaters. And then I got real busy with a new career I was beginning in software engineering. Mm-hmm. That took away all of my time for the next 30 years.
Right.
So
there was a break.
There was a period of no knitting for 30 years again.
Can you imagine?
And I kind of put it aside. I mean, of course, really put it aside, and didn't know I'd ever come back to it. But then I was very fortunate in my career, and I was able to retire at the age of 60. So what do you do in retirement? Well, I was enjoying myself, doing all kinds of things, taking up one hobby after another, pursuing whatever I felt like. And one day I thought, I think I'm going to knit a sweater for my husband. And so I went and got a book that talked about how to knit sweaters and had basic patterns for a plain sweater. And I started knitting the sweater, and I thought, oh, I could just add a different color yarn and create stripes around the chest.
Yeah.
It didn't occur to me to follow a pattern exactly the way they're written.
I don't think I ever have in my knitting life.
Yeah, I didn't know that people did that. I didn't know you bought a pattern and knitted it exactly as the pattern said. I just thought, okay, here's a, you know, in fact, it was Ann Budd's book.
Oh.
And so, you know, it's a lot of sweaters and suggestions of how to modify them. And so I started doing that kind of thing.
Right.
So from the beginning, I began designing my own sweaters.
So let's talk about your software background, because we're going to talk about your website here in a minute.
Yes.
But what's in the middle of that Venn diagram? If we have knitter over here and we have software engineer over here, what's in that overlap space? Because I think a lot of people reasonably think of knitting as an arts and crafts kind of,
Yes.
as though a software engineer or an engineer of any kind isn't a creative type, but of course it's a highly creative field. But what's in that middle space to you? What?
Well, I didn't realize it when I started knitting. I don't know why I was drawn to knitting. But once I did discover it as something I might want to do in my retirement, I suddenly took to it like, this is the most natural thing in the world to me. This is what I was born to do. This is what I've wanted to do all my life, and I had forgotten I wanted to do it all my life. And so when I started doing it, then I realized somehow it started to fit into the same part of my brain that software fit into. And then here's the magic piece. I was online one day talking to somebody else or interchanging with somebody, another knitter I'd never met but was just online with, and he suggested this program offered by the Knitting Guild Association, which was the Master's Certificate in Knitting. And I thought, well, I don't know what I don't know about knitting, and here's a program that's going to cover everything you could want to know about knitting. I don't know if I can do the program. I don't know if I'm advanced enough to even start, but why not go try it out? So I downloaded the first level of this 3-level program, and I started working on it, and it just hooked me.
Right.
I was like, I can do this. And I started working on it. I devoted every single day for the next 2 years to that program, and at the end of 2 years I received my master's certificate in knitting from the Knitting Guild Association.
So not only was it something you could do,
I'd like to say that's tkga.org, and it changed my life.
We will have links to that in the description of the video.
So
and we have a little sort of study club for those of us here who are working on one of TKGO's programs, because they have a few different certifications.
They do. Yes, they do.
Suzanne Bryan, who is a local Bakersfielder, who we'll link to her as well. She is a master knitter. Many of us have had the great fortune of being taught by her, working with her on projects. So I know it has enriched a lot of people.
Absolutely.
And it is invaluable in a lot of ways. And if you take to it, you really take to it, is what I found.
After I started on the program, I then read more about what the program was going to teach you. I mean, I started immediately when I heard of it. I downloaded it and started. And so I didn't even know what I'd gotten myself into. And I started reading what they said. By the end of this program, you'll be writing your own patterns, and you can maybe write articles for magazines and publish patterns in magazines. I thought, oh, I'll never be able to do that. I have no idea how to write a pattern.
But you were
never
wrong.
be there, and I'm not creative. I will never be able to design anything new.
Right.
And I was all wrong.
Which is great.
It's like, I didn't realize, the program is what teaches you to do things you don't know how to do.
Yeah.
So there it was. It's like, by the end of level 3, I had written a lot of patterns. I knew exactly how to write a pattern.
Right.
And guess what writing a pattern is like? It's like programming a computer.
Yeah.
It's lots of little instructions that have to be exactly right. Counts are right, details are right.
Right. If the syntax is off,
there's
you
even
can't do it.
a code that has to be right.
Exactly.
And it's just like, and so that really fit together with my engineering background.
Right.
And then I started playing with, well, how can you do this sweater and be able to do do it in the round,
Right.
and have true set-in sleeves like this sweater is. This one is the saddle shoulder version of the sweater that you can do on my website, and it simply changes the color of yarn you're using to create this pattern. But this is the sweater. This is one of the two kinds of sweaters you can do
Right.
on my website.
You have a crew neck.
A crew neck and the
a
saddle shoulder.
Oh,
so
yes.
the saddle shoulder is like that.
Yeah, they are. So let's talk about your website. So,
All right.
I mean, really, in terms of being a knitter and a software engineer, this is what you're working on. This has become a thing.
I
Tell us about
actually,
it.
this has become the crowning achievement of my professional career because it married my two great loves. My knitting, which I've now been doing for a total of about 7 years, and my software engineering, which I've done for 40 years.
For more
now.
than that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it brought the two together. It took me a year to develop the website, and over that year, I was perfecting the pattern and also publishing patterns in Cast On magazine that were based on the pattern that
Right.
is now produced on the website.
So let's get this big and on the screen. What is the website? Where am I going if I want to find out more about
The
this?
website is called Phrancko.com, but it's spelled in a very unusual way.
Okay, spell it for us.
PHRANCKO
Okay.
.com. Phrancko. PH for F
Yeah.
and CK for
Co.
CKO.
In case you didn't have a notepad and pencil handy, we will have a link to the website in the description. Okay, so I'm interested, I want to get on there. What am I going to find once I'm there?
Once you go there, you sign up like you do for any website. It doesn't cost anything to sign up for the website. You don't pay anything until you're ready to download a pattern. So the website will then guide you through entering the information from your well, first I should say,
Okay.
the pattern, the website wants to create a custom fit sweater using the yarn and needles that you've chosen to use that you'd like to make a sweater from.
Right.
So the first thing you have to do is knit a swatch using the yarn and needles of your choice. Then you get the gauge, you measure the gauge for that swatch. You mark a number of stitches, measure the distance, count the stitches, and then do the same for the rows. And so you've got the data about the swatch. You take measurements of your body, very few actually, chest measurement, neck measurement, normal things. And then you go to the website, you put in information from the yarn band, and so that it knows what yarn you're using. And then you put in information about the person you're knitting for, whether it's your measurements or somebody else. Then you put in a few more specifics about the sweater you're making, whether you want to do the crew neck or the saddle shoulder. What is the total length of the sweater you want to use? How long do you want the cuff to be? How long do you want the hem ribbing to be?
Right.
The specifics for that particular sweater. And then you say, okay, make me this sweater. And so it takes you to a page where you can then choose the fit that you want to make.
Right.
And you have a selection of about 6 different fits.
Right. Whether you want something
form-fitting or each one is associated with a certain ease.
Yes.
And so the standard fit is 2 inches of ease. There's also a choice of 4 inches of ease or 6 inches of ease. Also, you can do 0 ease if you want a form-fitting sweater, or even negative ease if you want a tight
really form-fitting sweater.
And the last sweater that I published on Cast On magazine, just in the latest issue, was a T-shirt that is form-fitting for a muscular young man. And so it's done with a stretchy fabric and is done as a negative ease.
Right.
And the pattern basically was generated on the website, except I made it a short sleeve pattern and added shaping to the body.
Because, of course, you not being the sort of person who's just going to follow the output, you wouldn't expect your knitters to do that as well. Make adjustments.
That's right.
Add your stripes, add your stitch patterns. If I don't want a plain stockinette, I can just take gauge measurements of
whatever you want to do. But suppose you want to do an all-over pattern. You can just do your swatch in that pattern and put in the gauge measurements for that swatch, and the pattern that gets generated will give you a pattern that fits you to that fit.
I think that's pretty remarkable. The ability to
pattern.
generate a pattern that is exactly what you want going in, making those choices, those design choices yourself, and then getting the help from the software on the website to create a pattern once you've made a few choices.
That's right. And when you're choosing the fits, you can choose more than one. So the way it's priced is when you download the pattern, you pay for it, and you pay based on how many fits you've chosen. The first fit, you can get a pattern for one fit for $6. And then you add a second fit, it's another $2, and each additional fit after that is $1 more. So you can get all of the fits. I think it's for $12 total.
Right, which is a lot of sweaters,
and
a lot of very different sweaters.
But they're all made for the same person.
Right.
So the fits are not small, medium, large, extra large, because those are all for different people. They have different neck sizes, different shoulder sizes. These are all fits for one person, so even though the body width is changing, the neck size is the same for all of them. The shoulder width is the same for all of them. And the arm length is the same for all of them.
How about, how versatile is the pattern generation in terms of the materials I've chosen to use? So if you're a Bakersfielder like us and it's very warm where you live and you like a fingering weight sweater, versus someone who you promised someone you would make them the sweater and you need it next weekend. Can you put in super bulky yarn and what are the parameters here?
When you get to the outside of things, you may hit some problems.
Right.
And in that case, I'd like to know it because I've only worked with mostly worsted, DK, fingering, and sport. Right. And I have done bulky, so I know it works for all of those.
Right.
I don't know if it works for all of those for all body sizes.
So if you are
small and
super
large,
adventurous and you want to help Frank out, then choose something out there and see if it works.
Yeah, exactly.
And let him know.
And the website will tell you if it can't make a sweater for all the parameters you put in.
And there are forums on.
That's right. There's both a forum and a blog that's associated with Phrancko.com.
Right.
It's FranckoForum.com and FranckoBlog.com, but you can get to both of those from Phrancko.com.
Great.
At the top in the menu bar, it will say blog and forum, among other things, like log in and sign up, things like that.
Right.
But
Website
they're right
things.
there. So if you click on forum, you go to FranckoForum.com. If you click on blog, you'll go to FranckoBlog.com. And what you need to realize is that FranckoForum.com is a separate website, requires a separate login in order to be able to post into the forum. You can read everything that's there without being a member of the forum, but even though you've joined Phrancko.com and have an account there, you have to have a separate server account at FranckoForum.com to be able to post questions. But I like it when people go to Phrancko Forum and say, here's the sweater I'm knitting, I'm partway through, I have this question, I don't understand this part of the pattern. I'm there to answer questions.
And it's also great as a designer just to hear from people that it's going great with.
Oh, I love it. Absolutely.
Being able to show people really enjoy doing this. People are having a great time doing this, and I think you're off to the races, which is really cool. I've tooled around on the website myself, got myself a pattern that is just sort of sitting there based on a swatch that I had at home already, that I have no intention of making a sweater out of that yarn, but I wanted to play with because it's so fascinating to see, your measurements become a pattern. If I did want to make that sweater, I would be ready, which is super cool. Is there anything else you want to share about the whole experience? You get out there and do it.
Yes, I really appreciate it. The website is in its early stages, so there's only 2 patterns available. I will be adding a few more. Probably a V-neck sweater V-neck collar would be the next item. And I'm also working on some more experimental types.
And if I download the pattern, if I get the pattern, it stays there, right?
It stays there. You can come back and download it over and over. Right. And if I find an error in a pattern that you've already downloaded, I will update the pattern, and I will, if it's a severe error, I will contact everybody who has downloaded that pattern and tell them, oh, I found this really serious error.
There shouldn't be 3 sleeves.
So just download it again,
Right.
and you'll get the updated pattern. So anytime there's an update to a pattern, if you want to download it again, you'll get the latest version of that pattern. But it still will be that pattern for that person and those fits that you have chosen for that pattern.
Well, thank you very much for coming on and talking with me today. Thank you for coming down and doing this event with us today in conjunction with What the Knit Guild. I know that people really appreciate it.
I really loved meeting the women, and I met some of them a year ago at the conference, and it's such a delightful group, and they're so much fun to be with. So I've really had a terrific time with.
As a yarn store owner, having such an adventurous, well-educated group of knitters in town to work with is really a delight. So, and having people come in is wonderful for us. We felt kind of like a little isolated yarn desert for a while.
And I feel like you all are so lucky that Suzanne Bryan is the person that you have heading the guild, because she's my favorite teacher on the web. And I became familiar with her in her classes before I knew who she was.
Oh,
and now we've become good friends.
Good.
I feel really lucky for
making those connections and the knitting community, I think, is one of the coolest parts. I mean, I love the fiddly bits. I love to knit all the time. But you meet just such great people. Knitters
certainly do.
Great people. Thank you so much, Frank.
Thank you, Ron.
Check out all the links to what Frank is up to on Phrancko.com. And get the word out. If you want to make a sweater, check this out. If you've got friends who you think would be interested, get them on there. The more people who participate and spread the word, the more deep you'll be able to get into the process, making sure everything is wonderful, adding more things.
That's exactly right.
So let's get it out there. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.